Kia ora tātou, welcome back to The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. At the end of Chapter 9, Part 1, we got up to the part where Edmund has come to the witch's castle and has found a lion standing ready to pounce at the courtyard, and he's frozen with fear. Then at last he began to wonder why the lion was standing so still, for it hadn't moved 1 inch since he first set eyes on it. Edmund now ventured a little nearer, still keeping in the shadow of the arch as much as he could. He now saw, from the way the lion was standing, that it couldn't have been looking at him at all. But supposing it turns its head, thought Edmund. In fact, it was staring at something else, namely, a little dwarf who stood with its back to it about 4 feet away. Aha, thought Edmund, when it springs at the dwarf, then it will be my chance to escape. But still, the lion never moved. Nor did the dwarf, and now at last Edmund remembered what the others had said about the White Witch turning people into stone. Perhaps this was only a stone lion, and as soon as he had thought of that, he noticed that the lion's back and the top of its head were covered with snow. Of course, it must only be a statue. No living animal would have let itself get covered with snow. Then very slowly, and with his heart beating as if it would burst, Edmund ventured to go up to the lion. Even now he hardly dared touch it, but at last he put out one hand very quickly, and did. It was stone cold. He had been frightened of a mere statue. The relief which Edmund felt was so great that in spite of the cold he suddenly got warm all over, right down to his toes, and at the same time there came into his head what seemed a perfectly lovely idea. Probably, he thought, this is the great lion Aslan that they were all talking about. She's caught him already and turned him into stone. So that's the end of all their fine ideas about him. Who's afraid of Aslan? And he stood there, gloating over the stone lion, and presently he did something very silly and childish. He took a stump of lead pencil out of his pocket and scribbled a moustache on the lion's upper lip, and then a pair of spectacles on its eyes. And then he said, silly old Aslan, how do you like being a stone? You thought yourself mighty fine, didn't you? But in spite of the scribbles on the face of the great stone beast, it still looked terrible and sad and noble, staring up in the moonlight, that Edmund didn't really get any fun out of jeering at it. He turned away and began to cross the courtyard. As he got into the middle of it, he saw that there were dozens of statues all about, standing here and there, rather as the pieces stand on a chessboard when it is halfway through the game. There were stone satyrs and stone wolves and bears and foxes and catamountains of stone. There were lovely stone shapes that looked like women, but who were really the spirits of trees. There was the great shape of a centaur and a winged horse, and a long, lithe creature that Edmund took to be a dragon. They all looked so strange, standing there perfectly lifelike and also perfectly still in the bright, cold moonlight, that it was eerie work crossing the courtyard. Right in the very middle stood a huge shape like a man, but as tall as a tree, with a fierce face and a shaggy beard and a great club in its right hand. Even though he knew that it was only a stone giant and not a live one, Edmund did not like going past it. He now saw that there was a dim light showing from a doorway on the far side of the courtyard. He went to it. There was a flight of stone stairs going up to an open door. Edmund went up them. Across the threshold lay a great wolf. There he is going up the stone stairs, and the wolf laying on the top of the steps. It's all right, he kept saying to himself. It's only a stone wolf, it can't hurt me. And he raised his leg to step over it. Instantly the huge creature rose, with all the hair bristling along its back, opened a great red mouth, and said in a growling voice, Who's there? Who's there? Stand still, stranger, and tell me who you are. If you please, sir, said Edmund, trembling so that he could hardly speak. My name is Edmund, and I'm the son of Adam that Her Majesty met in the wood the other day, and I've come to bring her the news that my brother and sisters are now in Narnia, quite close, in the beaver's house. She wanted to see them. I will tell Her Majesty, said the wolf. Meanwhile, stand still on the threshold, as you value your life. And then it vanished into the house. Edmund stood and waited, his fingers aching with cold and his heart pounding in his chest, and presently the great wolf, Morgrim, the chief of the witches' secret police, came bounding back and said, come in, fortunate favourite of the Queen, or else not so favourite. And Edmund went in, taking great care not to tread on the wolf's paws. He found himself in a long, gloomy hall with many pillars, full as the courtyard had been of statues. The one nearest the door was a little fawn, with a very sad expression on its face, and Edmund couldn't help wondering if this might be Lucy's friend. The only light came from a single lamp, and close beside this sat the White Witch. I've come, Your Majesty, said Peter, rushing eagerly forward. How dare you come alone, said the witch in a terrible voice. Did I not tell you to bring the others with you? Oh, please, Your Majesty, said Edmund. I've done the best I can. I brought them quite close. They're in the little house on top of the dam, just up the river, with Mr. and Mrs. Beaver. A slow, cruel smile came over the witch's face. Is that all your news? She asked. Oh, no, Your Majesty, said Edmund, and proceeded to tell her all he had heard before leaving the beaver's house. What? Aslan? Cried the Queen. Aslan, is this true? If I find you have lied to me? Please, I'm only repeating what they said, stammered Edmund. But the Queen, who was no longer attending to him, clapped her hands. Instantly, the same dwarf who Edmund had seen with her before appeared. Make ready our sledge, ordered the witch, and use the harness without bells.